Hi, 11th graders. We are starting a new chapter, and so I wanted to talk you into that new chapter a little bit. We're moving on to economics, which is also connected to law and politics. You really can't separate all of these out completely. Economics, if you're familiar with the Oikos yogurt brand or anything, it comes from that word. It means house or household, and then nomos is always going to be connected to law. So the law or the customs of a household, overall, if you put it together, it means the running of a household. There are a lot of ways in economics that you can take what happens on that small scale, like the household, think in terms of a budget and cash flow in and out and the decision making that happens there. You can take it and apply it on a grander scale as well. So it's a pretty fitting word. We know that God created the world with abundance, and yet in many ways we experience scarcity in different parts of the world now. So economists are interested in those two things, abundance and scarcity. How do we promote abundance and reduce scarcity overall? And whose job is that? To what degree should the government be involved in regulating that, right? So we're dealing with two kind of units, households and firms. A household doesn't necessarily have to mean just your family, but it means the unit that consumes, right? The consumer. And then firms refer to the producers. So who's producing the goods and services that are entering into the market? We're gonna look at both microeconomics and macroeconomics. Microeconomics is just smaller scale. So it could be individuals, it could be you as a consumer, it could be your family as a unit of consumption, or it could be small businesses too. So when you're thinking about microeconomics, you're thinking more the economy in your community. And when you move on to macroeconomics, then you're thinking nations and global economics. So they are connected, but they're going to work a little bit differently. Economists have the facts that they can look at, the world as it is, but they're also imposing projections, right? So they're also thinking about the world as it could be, or even as it should be. And we know that all the different worldviews have ideas about how the world should be. And so that's going to influence their economic philosophy and what they think is the right thing to do. We're also going to have to look a lot at the government's role in helping the economy. So should it be a complete free-for-all and everyone fends for themselves? Or does the government need to step in and do some regulation? Does the government need to protect private property? Does that extend to intellectual property? So maybe it's an idea. Do I have a right to have that idea protected, or that song, right? To apply it to something that we all are familiar with, streaming music and that kind of thing. Also looking at the government's role, is their job economic efficiency or economic equity? Economic efficiency tries, if the economy is a pie, if you think of it as a pie, efficiency says the government should just try to make the pie as big as possible. Whereas economic equity is going to try to make sure the pie is divided into equal slices, regardless of the size, right? If that makes sense. Also, we're going to have to look a little bit about debt and the role of going into debt to try to stimulate the economy. So we'll get into that a little bit, but the end game of that is that right now our nation carries a great deal of debt, and your generation and your children are really the ones that are going to bear the responsibility for that. So if you think about justice, you can use this word, intergenerational justice. Is it responsible and fair to borrow money that you won't be responsible for repaying, but that future generations will? So those are just some of the things I want you to be thinking about as you start the economics chapter. If you have questions about anything, you know how to get in touch with me.